Diego, and Martin. Martin, I believe, is the #1 rated player in Europe, has the most championship points, and Diego is a longtime veteran of the Pokemon TCG. He's made top 8 at Worlds, I believe, before, qualified for many, many World Championships. So this should be a great matchup with two players we don't get to see very often, only at Worlds.
Yeah, and it's really exciting what the World Championships gets to do. Finding these matchups is always very easy to do because we're always bringing in those highest level players, and we're always going to be able to see those, and it sounds like we're ready to get to them right now.
All right, so let's get started. Round number 2 of the Pokemon TCG World Championships.
All right,
so it looks like we have Diego featured on the camera right there. Always wears that hat every year. I've seen him. He wears that same hat. And there's Martin. I believe he is a relatively new player, but he has done extremely well. I know a couple years ago at the World Championships, he had a nice run with a Blastoise Keldeo deck, and now he's here with a Night March deck.
Right, and Diego playing a deck that we had seen in the past had really fallen out of favor. This might be the first time we've had the Zubat, Golbat, Crobat line going on the stream this year. At Worlds, saw a bunch of it at Nationals, but suddenly the bats had kind of fallen out, and but they have come back here.
Yep, and there we see Hawlucha going up against a Joltik. You see a Muscle Band going onto that, and here's a Professor Juniper to start things off. On paper, this looks like a very bad matchup for Martin because, this is kind of the deck that really cast Night March aside. These Crobat decks are just too aggressive and could do too much damage to those Joltik without even attacking. Landorus EX spreads so much damage early on, and even Focus Sash gives Night March a really hard time, so this is going to be tough for Martin.
Right. Because those bats can drop 20, 30 damage counters on the benched Pokemon before they even get a chance. Those Night March Pokemon they are expecting to be safe on the bench just don't have that safety chance. Diego went first, got a bunch of stuff out ready to go. He's got his Hawlucha powered up. He's got his Zubat ready to go. He's got that free flight for free retreat because it has no energy attached to it. And so his whole board is basically set up really well at this point.
Yeah. On Martin's side, he is getting a Battle Compressor. That is the card you do want to start with the Night March deck. You always are happy to see that in your opening hand. Get to search for 3 Pokemon to discard right away. Looks like he's going to opt to discard 2 Lampent and then a Professor Juniper. Presumably he has a Versus Seeker, so you can go ahead and take that out of the discard and get a supporter for the turn.
Yep, so he gets that. Looks like he might even have a Lampent in his hand, so that's not going to be... and he's going to Ultra Ball it away right away. So gets another Night March Pokemon in his discard pile. Also gets rid of a Escape Rope right away there. Card he probably isn't going to need right away, and he is really short Pokemon, so he's going to get probably the Pumpkaboo, since it's fighting resistant, and also is the highest HP of the Night March Pokemon.
Pumpkaboo is your biggest weapon in this kind of a matchup. The fighting resistance helps you a little bit against Landorus EX. You can sometimes survive attacks. There we do see this Shaman EX set up for the full 6 cards, so really explosive first turn from Martin so far. But again, Diego has the options to deal with this Night March deck. There are some decks that can just get overrun by quick Night March attacks. This really isn't one of them. You have the options to take multiple prizes in a single turn through the use of Golbat and Crobat's abilities. Landorus EX can do damage to the bench, and there are just so many low HP Pokemon in this Night March deck that, it's very easy to pick up multiple prizes and even withstand first turn knockouts.
Yep, we saw Martin play an Acrobike there, and almost a perfect one. Was able to discard a Night March Pokemon into the discard pile and get the Mew EX out that helps him copy the Night March attack.
Yep, and he still hasn't found any energy, though. He needs to find double colorless energy if he wants to use Night March. So here's a big Professor Juniper. He has drawn a ton of cards this turn, but will it end with him attacking? We still haven't seen an energy yet.
Well, that is a lot of... So we're going to look in the prizes, see how many energy we find there. Only a single lightning energy. So, yeah, Martin is just having terrible luck at finding those energy cards.
Yeah, and it's important to note he actually does have 2 Night March Pokemon in his prize card. So That's 2 less Night March Pokemon he can put in his discard pile, which means 40 less damage he can do with that attack. So Town Map is a card we've seen featured in these Night March decks because it's so important to have access to all of them. You need to flip over your prize cards and try to pull those out right away.
Yep, we see a Trainer's Mail. Even though he can't take the energy card, he didn't even see one in that top few cards. Boy, he might even be needing to desperation play that last Shaman there after his other compressor to try to get another energy or any energy in his hand.
Yeah, I think in this kind of a matchup, you really need to be, I don't know if it's possible to be more aggressive than usual, but you really can't afford to miss attacks every turn. You need to be able to keep getting knockouts, put pressure on your opponent, because if Diego is able to set up his Crobat line and just start getting free damage everywhere, I don't think the Night March deck can deal with that.
Right, and we see Martin running another Battle Compressor and just getting rid of the rest of the Battle Compressors from his deck.
Yeah, that's a smart play. I mean, after you've run out of Pokemon you want to discard, just get rid of Battle Compressor because, well, you don't want to draw those anymore. You've discarded enough cards already.
Right, so he's going to play another Trainer's Mail.
We'll see if he finds something this time. I don't see anything worth taking.
Yeah, I doubt he'll take any of those cards, shuffle them all back in. He doesn't want to run a Revive at this point, and he doesn't really want the Lysander either.
Yeah, he is digging through so many cards. It's pretty crazy. He hasn't found any energy yet. I think he has one last Shaman EX to use. So here we go. He's going to be drawing 4 cards, and finally he finds that double colorless energy.
But he's so deep in his deck at this point.
Oh, wait, he finds the lightning energy, too. 2 days in a row, we can use that Gnaw. Zubat, of course, weak to lightning, so he can go ahead and Gnaw for the knockout. I never thought we would see that once, but now we have seen that twice at the World Championships.
I am putting Gnaw down on my ballot for MVP for this World, so hopefully that vote will go through.
Yeah, and Martin actually takes Trainer's Mail out of his prize cards. It's really interesting that he would leave those Night March Pokemon in there. Maybe his hand isn't strong enough for him to, take those Night March Pokemon right now.
Well, not only that, but right now he doesn't have any big HP Pokemon on Diego's board to worry about, so maybe it's not an immediate threat to him. But this is going to be a big N for Diego. Martin had quite a few cards there. Now he's going to be taken down to 5.
Yeah. And Diego, I mean, for as good as this matchup is for him, he really hasn't found any of his Landers EX quite yet, and that's going to be the big card he needs. Howlucha, as great as it is, doesn't do anything against non-EX Pokemon. Zubat doesn't really attack, so he's going to need to find a Landers EX very soon.
Yeah, he could find a Lysander to try to bring up the EX Pokemon, but he doesn't either.
Yeah, and he's already played his supporter for the turn. See Diego kind of shaking his head a little bit. Looks like, wow, his hand must not be very good at all.
Yeah, it looks like he's got a Colress, Fighting Energy, and a Muscle Band, and a couple other supporters.
Yeah, this is not looking good for him. He can get Golbat out and use that Sneaky Bite, put 2 damage counters on. If he has a Fighting Energy, he could swoop across. Or actually, he doesn't even need to attach because Dimension Valley's in play. He could retreat and swoop across, knocking out Joltik. That might be an option.
And he might have to just to, try to hope that Martin doesn't have energy. We see he does, but he's got to make sure that he's, like we talked about last night, but he's getting rid of the Dimension Valley.
Yeah, he attached the energy, puts down the Silent Lab so he can shut down Mew EX from using that versatile ability. And there we see the swoop across, 10 damage to everything, and he'll take a prize card. Already some unusual attacks being thrown out.
Yeah, not the way that we usually see these Pokemon being used. We've seen Gnaw go out, we've seen Swoop Across go out. Usually we're only looking at the surprise bites and the Night Marches there.
Yeah, usually we're seeing Landers EX using Hammerhead and, well, the Night March deck using Night March, but so far weird things have been happening. But hey, that's just part of the Pokemon TCG. Your deck doesn't always run as smoothly as you'd like, and sometimes you have to figure out backup plans, and that's what makes these players the best.
Right, being able to use those things that aren't what you're always just like, well, here's the main game plan for this deck. Yeah, the players that can adapt to that on the fly are really the ones that will make it this far.
So we see another Acro Bike from Martin. We see Golbat against Pumpkaboo right now. I mean, at this point, Martin seems to be in a pretty decent position. He does need to find Dimension Valley this turn, though, if he wants to use Night March with Pumpkaboo. I'm sure he doesn't want to put another Joltik into play that could just be a liability later on. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't really have anything to attack with if he can't find Dimension Valley.
Right, because he can't use the... often you get to get Mew out there for cheap as well, but yeah, without the Dimension Valley, it's just the attacks are costing too much. He does put a double colorless on his benched Pumpkaboo, but that might imply that he's just going to give up the one he's got active. If he can't find that stadium.
He uses Versus Seeker for Professor Juniper, but he has to discard one of his precious double colorless energy. That is your biggest resource with the Night March deck. Unfortunate that he has to do that, but he needs to find Dimension Valley if he wants to attack here.
And he also, he had to discard that. He also had to discard one of his lightning energy. We see he's got one prized, so he does have one more lightning energy, but that's almost useless at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you can use that with Dimension Valley to attack with Mew EX, but that would force you to put your Joltik down, which, again, can be a liability. But, yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a strange matchup so far. Probably not usually how these two decks go up against each other, but, hey, it's Pokemon TCG, and it's not always going to be by the book. Some things are going to be out of order sometimes.
Right. We do see after that Juniper, he did find a Dimension Valley, so he is going to be able to knock out that Golbat. Looks like it's all up to Hawlucha right now if Diego can't find the Landorus he's been digging for.
Yeah, and then even if he does find Landorus EX, I mean, Pumpkaboo does resist fighting. So, I mean, with a strong energy and a muscle band, you're actually still 10 short. So maybe... Yeah, I don't really know what Diego goes for here. He might just have to go for a small Hammerhead and hope that his Landorus survives so he can set up for like a 2-prize knockout on both Pumpkaboo.
Right. We don't see how many Night March Pokemon Martin has, but I don't think he's got enough to take out a Landorus at this point.
Probably not. I mean, there's 2 in his prize card, so
yeah,
it's going to make it difficult. Here we see another N from Diego, still trying to find that Landorus EX or something just to get some offense going. I mean, the biggest attack he's used so far is Swoop Across, and that's not really a good sign.
Right. Decent hand here. He has got a Shaman in his hand, so he'll probably try to play out as much as he can.
Yep, so he's going to go ahead and draw 3 cards, it looks like. It seems like he drew that Landorus EX, but did he get energy this time?
Yeah, his hand is short on energy. He's got Switch in there, but yeah, he probably wants to get the Landorus out at the very least.
He does have a Super Scoop Up in hand, it looks like. He could try to do that to scoop up the Hawlucha and pick up the strong energy. All right, gets heads on that. He's got to decide which Pokemon to pick up. Could pick up Shaman EX and reuse that setup ability, or could just go for the sure thing, pick up Hawlucha, so he gets the strong energy and is able to attack with Landorus. Looks like Hawlucha will be the choice.
Right, he gets to put that Zubat up front, but again, with the free flight, it can retreat for free.
Yep. So there is Landorus EX coming down right now with the strong energy, with the muscle band. Normally that would do 70 damage, but the fighting resistance makes Pumpkaboo survive, so this is not the greatest situation in the world for Diego. However, it will set up a future play with a Golbat Sneaky Bite getting a knockout, so I mean, he's got to start doing some damage somewhere.
Right, so he brings up that Landorus. Has got the, like we said, all the buffs that he can on there, but it's still going to be 10 short on the Pumpkaboo. But he is going to be able to set up for that 2-turn punch, and we'll see if Martin can get enough in the discard pile to counterpunch.
Yeah, this is where you can see the low HP of Martin's Pokemon really being a disadvantage in this matchup. Sure, those Pokemon survive this Hammerhead, but if he gets another one off, that's 2 prizes gone. And at this point, I mean, if you bench a Joltik, that's an easy Hammerhead knockout. So, especially with Golbat and Crobat coming out eventually, the damage is going to start to add up.
Right, he's getting a Lysander there, probably going to pull up that Shaman since it's the only card that can't get back out of the active super easy.
Yeah, so he's going to pull up Shaman just for the easy 2-prize knockout. Martin's game plan at this point will be knock out 2 EXs, right? He's going to knock out the Shaman here, go down to 2 prizes, and then hopefully knock out the Landorus EX on the following turn.
Right. The Shaman, not as resilient as the Landorus, so a bit easier to get the knockout on that one.
Right, only 110 HP, still gives up those 2 prize cards, though. Martin will prepare by attaching an energy to his Mew EX. He just wants to give himself the highest odds possible of pulling off a big attack next turn. Going to use a Shaman EX to set up here for some additional cards. I'm not really sure what he's digging for, but it looks like he's got something in mind.
Yep, he's going through his options there, but yeah, just going to knock out the old Shaman. And
finally takes those 2 Night March Pokemon out of the discard pile.
Because now he's really going to need them to get rid of the Landers. Diego puts that free retreating Hawlucha up front.
Yeah, and with those 2 prize cards taken, it's really the writing on the wall for Diego. He needs to get an N this turn and shuffle those cards back in. He knows Martin has that Joltik in hand, so if he doesn't disrupt Martin's hand at all, Mew EX can just come out and Night March for the game when he puts down that Joltik.
Right, so he's going through his hand here, and I'm not seeing a ton. He does have an Ultra Ball. I don't think he runs, no, he does not run a Jirachi EX to dig out an N with that ability.
He does play 2 Shaman EX, so he could search for another one of those. Sure, it's a liability to put that down, but I mean, this is a pretty decent situation. If you can knock out all the Night March Pokemon and end your opponent down to 2 cards, I mean, Mew EX can't Night March if there's no Night March Pokemon in play. So it's a good move to be able to do that.
Right, and I don't see anything really super useful that you could copy from the other side. A lot of times you got to be careful there that if you do take out everything on the Night March side, that Mew out of nowhere will copy one of your attacks.
Yeah, but actually, both Shaman EX are in the discard pile at this point, so Diego has to Ultra Ball for that Golbat. And, he can use both bites here. He knocked out the first Pumpkaboo. He can knock out the second one and put Martin in perhaps an awkward position. He'll have to promote a new Pokemon to kind of take a hit. So there we do see the second sneaky bite getting the knockout. Still hasn't attacked yet, and Diego's going to hope for something good off of this prize card. I think he's probably looking for an N. I think Martin's trying to do some math, trying to figure out which Pokemon to promote here. If he promotes Mew EX, there is a chance that Hawlucha with enough support can knock it out, and that would be a horrible situation for him. So he's going to promote Shaman EX. Looks like Diego got a super scoop up, but that's not really what he's looking for.
Right. He does have another strong energy in his hand, it looks like. But he could maybe try to power up that Landers for a big attack. But yeah, this is just a tough situation kind of on both sides all of a sudden. If Diego can't end, but he's just going to pass the turn.
Yeah, I think... you can't attack with Landers here. If you put that out there, it's just so easy for Martin to win the game.
Right.
Force him to have a Lysander and bring out your Landers. He's going to need an Energy, a Night March Pokemon, and the Lysander to win the game here. So make it tougher for him.
No, he's also got to get rid of that, get Shaman out of the active spot as well.
Yeah.
It's currently stuck. Doesn't look like he has many switching cards in his deck, if any. He does have the one float stone, and I think we already saw that used on a Pumpkaboo.
Yeah, and he is kind of running low on energy as well, so there is some chance that Shaman won't be able to retreat. We see that one lightning in the prizes there too.
Right, and we saw him have to accidentally, well, not accidentally, but he had to throw away one of his double colorless super early.
Okay, so he may only have one energy left in his deck total.
Yeah.
So we see Computer Search discarding that Lampent. Looks like he'll also discard Ultra Ball with that. And yeah, the last energy is that double colorless energy in his deck. So it's basically all or nothing. You have to win the game, otherwise you're going to be in an awkward spot.
Right. He does have he could possibly Sky Return here, but I don't know if that does what he needs.
Nope, he's going to retreat.
Yep.
And if he has that Lysander, he can go ahead and do that for the game. He's got the Versus Seeker.
There's the Seeker.
So there is Lysander, brings out Landers EX, and there are enough Night March Pokemon in there. We're just going to do the math to make sure, counts them all with the Muscle Band. That should be enough. And there we go. Night March for the game, and Martin, #1 rated player in Europe, is going to take this game with Night March.
So that was a really interesting matchup, and like kind of I don't know if we want to say lucky, but like kind of a squeaker there for Martin to win that. Do you think that Diego has he probably has a really good chance to at least tie, but do you think that he can take this match?
I think so. These are two pretty fast-paced decks, both extremely aggressive. They're I feel like if any decks can play 3 games against each other, it's probably these in 50 minutes. So yeah, that was just a really rough start for Diego. Wasn't able to find his Landorus EX quickly enough. Struggled in the early goings. Hawlucha doesn't do much against Joltik. So yeah, just an unfortunate situation. Martin capitalizes though, and we'll move on to game number 2.
Yeah,